Meet the kids who won't eat, won't sleep, won't behave. And the parents who take the rap.
We've been slated left, right and centre. People say that boy needs a good smack. Theo.
Even Granny thinks Mum just needs to get a grip.
She's a little bit lazy. Well, she is lazy.
Mum and Dad are desperate for a label like ADHD or autism.
Why, Mum?
To explain their child's behaviour.
I think Billy's autistic.
I suspect maybe ADHD.
If it's not autism, what is it?
But could tough love be the solution?
No!
Is this just a naughty boy?
It can take years for parents to get a definitive answer.
Enough. This is what I'm up against, so, you know, I'm just getting nowhere.
So family GP Dr Dawn Harper and paediatrician Dr Ravi Jairam are tackling this controversy head-on, fast-tracking the process to see if medical help is needed.
Do you think they're ready for this diagnosis?
Or if the kids are just out of control. As a paediatrician and a GP, Dr Ravi and Dr Dawn often meet badly behaved kids, but now they must crack some real hard nuts. Desperate parents have asked them to investigate if their child's problems could have a medical cause.
No! I said no!
We have two kids who appear to have the same problem, an uncontrollable temper. Is the answer discipline or diagnosis? To begin, a snapshot of life with our first naughty nipper. And 6-year-old Theo spells trouble. It's been said that golf is a good walk spoiled.
No, don't you dare throw that at me, Theo.
And that's true if you're playing around with Theo. Trouble is par for the course.
3. 2. Theo, if Mummy did that, don't shout at me like that.
I've never seen a child act the way Theo does.
I am good too.
You're always on edge all the time.
This is beautiful.
You need to put your jacket on. It's cold.
I don't want my dinner.
Leave it.
No!
Theo. Theo, you can't walk off in a shop. Theo? Theo?
Theo's behaviour, especially his rudeness, stands out quite a lot. He is very rude and can be very aggressive.
Oh, don't do that, please. After about 4 or 5 holes, he starts dropping and we need to go in.
Luckily, going in doesn't involve walking far because single mum Emma and Theo live on the golf course. Along with Emma's 2 brothers, Nanny and Grandad.
My relationship with Theo is probably very similar to most grandfathers, except he's living in my house, which in some ways is great, and other ways it's a nightmare.
He can be an absolutely loving child, and then he can be a little bugger.
I wouldn't say Theo is normal. I thought when he was younger, normal, boisterous boy, but then when you start talking to the other mums, I realised that what he was doing was not normal. Mummy, do you understand?
Emma's asked our doctors to settle a family argument. Is Theo a naughty boy who needs reining in, or does he need medical help?
So this is Theo, who's a 6-year-old boy who lives in Surrey with his mum, his grandparents and his uncle, and he doesn't have any brothers or sisters.
And there are some serious issues, it seems, around his sleep.
Right, let's take a look.
OK.
6 a.m.
That's it, good boy.
Mum's in bed. As always, Nanny gets Theo ready for school.
Slept, didn't she? That's it, OK. Do you want your hearing aid in? Here, darling.
He's worn a hearing aid for partial hearing loss since he was a toddler.
Is it working?
Yeah.
Once on, he sits nicely and reads with Nanny.
Good boy. I enjoy his company, especially in the mornings, which is mostly the time that I have with him, because Emma doesn't like getting up early. You know, I mean, she's a little bit lazy. Well, she is lazy.
When Emma gets up, Theo goes from little angel to little devil.
Mum, get out of my...
No, don't hit me, please. Don't do that, please.
As soon as Emma comes down, which is normally quite late, especially on school days.
Theo, no. Don't do it, please.
Unfortunately, there is almighty shouting between her and Theo.
I guarantee you, every morning before he goes out, there's an argument, there's a row. You know, and I'm sitting here thinking, oh my God, I'm not getting, you know, and it does get you down a bit.
My husband actually goes out of the house and finds something to do because he hates the fact that as soon as she comes down, they're shouting, arguing between each other.
No, don't climb up. You don't need to climb up to get the butter.
I do find it really hard living here, my mum and dad being here. I feel like I'm being watched all the time.
There is obviously a bit of conflict in that family.
Oh, a bit is putting it mildly.
And he's clearly getting some quite mixed messages.
And they've clearly got different approaches to his behaviour.
Which perhaps undermines Mum a bit.
I think that will undermine Mum hugely, and I think he's probably aware of that and knows he gets away with things.
Patty. No. Don't speak to me like that. Don't be rude.
No.
It's a battle of wills.
Isn't that just?
Theo, this is your last warning. This is your last warning. Look
Please don't wrangle me.
your last warning.
3 last warnings.
If Emma tells him off, she gives him too many chances. She needs to be more firm with him.
Theo, read the letters.
Mummy, I'll make dinner for you, Theo.
So is Mom just a soft touch? Or is there more to Theo's meltdowns than meets the eye? Emma thinks so.
I suspect maybe ADHD. Just, it'll make a happier household if his behaviour does get sorted out. Something's got to change. It's too difficult to cope with, really. I just need it to change.
Mum's obviously wondered about ADHD. The footage we saw, he's really hyper most of the time. He's also quite oppositional as well.
Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder is the most commonly diagnosed child behavioural problem, but it's also one of the most controversial. Frequently criticised in the press, it's often treated with a drug called Ritalin. It's thought 1 in 20 kids may have ADHD, affecting the brain waves needed for concentration. Telltale signs are a short attention span, hyperactivity, problems with sleep, and impulsive behaviour.
What I'm interested in is why that behaviour is there, and hopefully that will become more apparent over time as we get a bit more information.
The team's next case is, like Theo, a real hothead. 9-year-old Honey can be sweet, especially with animals. But Honey's not always sweet.
Enough with the language.
No matter what Honey does, Mum and Dad get the blame.
We've always been told you haven't disciplined her enough, and then the next time you've disciplined her too much.
Yeah.
It's nobody else's fault but ours.
GP Dr Dawn and paediatrician Dr Ravi have promised definitive answers to stressed parents like Emma, who thinks her 6-year-old terror, Theo, has ADHD.
I'm a zombie.
Yeah.
Oh, no. No.
The trouble is, her mom thinks his rudeness and naughtiness can be stopped by better discipline.
If Emma tells him off, she gives him too many chances.
I won't.
She needs to be more firm with him.
I'm not climbing the chair to get it down. Theo,
So who's right?
chair, please.
The doctor's next conundrum is another child who appears to have the same problem: daily meltdowns.
So this is Honey. She's 9 years old, lives with Mum and Dad and her 3 siblings in Shropshire, and actually, she's not currently in school.
Ooh, and looking at this, I can see why. There's some fairly impressive behavioural issues here that I think need sorting out.
Here we go.
This is a tale of 2 Honeys.
In my family, there's my mom, that's Stella.
First, the sweet Honey.
My dad, that's Ben. My sister is Christy, and she is 16. There's Poppy, she's 7. Yay! And Toby, my other sister, she is 5.
But there's also the honey monster, a queen bee with a sting, which comes out when she's asked to do something she doesn't want to do.
Steady.
No! Was that yours to throw down the stairs?
No.
Do you mind stopping?
No.
Yeah, I think it's best you do, actually, young lady.
This is relatively calm for what she's like. It's been worse than this.
Stop.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Don't do that.
I will.
No, you won't.
I destroy loads of stuff.
It is quite embarrassing when she has a meltdown because everyone stares at you because she starts kicking off and, yeah, swearing and shouting.
I threaten to hurt people.
You're not attacking anyone.
For 5 years, the family has endured daily rages, frightened to ask Honey to do most things.
If you ask her to get up in the morning, if you ask her to wear something she doesn't want to wear, if you ask her to brush her teeth,
Leave me alone!
there will be an outburst.
She's having a meltdown.
I think...
Where do you start, hey?
Well,
OK.
she has these episodes of aggressive, defiant behaviour, but she knows she's doing it.
With 3 other children, it's already a hectic home.
There's not just 6 people living here. We have various pets. Jack, the dog, got 7 ducks, 5 chickens, 2 guinea pigs, 14 rabbits.
I like them because they calm me down. I love animals more than people.
There's a lot going on in that house, an awful lot. I mean, you just count the number of legs in that house and garden.
Although it seems, certainly from what we've seen, it's when she's with the animals, she seems to be at her calmest as well.
4 months ago, Honey was permanently excluded from school.
Honey's not in school at the minute. She had a fallout with some people out of her class.
And I threatened to kill them.
She had a major blowout and they had to call the police, and the police was concerned for everybody's safety. They called a paramedic out, but they wouldn't let the paramedic in the room with her because she was being so aggressive.
The most heartbreaking thing I think I've ever seen is Honey being restrained by 2 police officers. That absolutely was terrible.
It's very difficult, isn't it? She's obviously been excluded from school. But that in itself, I think, is a worry for a child like this because she's not learning interaction. She's not learning to deal with other kids when things don't go her own way.
But every time Ben and Stella seek help, they're told they are the problem.
We've always been told, well, you haven't disciplined her enough, and then the next time you've disciplined her too much, and then she's just naughty, or it's nobody else's fault but ours.
What's got thrown now? We've had all these like parenting classes and advice and everything they tell us to do works for the other 3 children and just doesn't work for Honey. Hun, steady.
Here we go again.
We're stuck, well and truly stuck, because everything that's been suggested to us, it doesn't go anywhere near doing what she needs, really. Come here, mate.
After 5 years, they're clueless as to how to stop it. And worried someone will really get hurt, not just Mum and Dad.
She gets violent towards us, teachers, people at school, her sisters. It's really getting out of hand now.
I'd really like to get a bit more of a picture of the family dynamics. I'd like to get a bigger picture of when these behaviours started.
You're not attacking anyone.
Leave it.
Dr. Ravi needs to see Honey and Theo in their homes to get a closer look at their naughty antics. First stop, the 19th hole in Surrey, where Mum Emma
Hello, I'm Ravi.
Hi, I'm Emma.
thinks 6-year-old Theo has ADHD.
Hello, are you Theo? Shall we do it the modern way? Give me 5. Ow!
While Granny thinks he needs discipline.
Leave the DVD player alone, please.
Theo, come down, please.
What's your main worry about what could be behind all of this?
ADHD.
OK. I mean, what do you feel?
I don't like children being diagnosed early with that. I was, because children can be, when they're young, they have different sort of stages they go through. Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. And
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of slapping a diagnosis on any child just because it suits. At the same time, if there is a problem, then I think it needs to be identified. Looking back when he was younger, did he ever seem to have these tantrums when he was trying to communicate?
Yeah, that's what we thought it was all about. We thought it was because he couldn't communicate and couldn't hear. That's why he was always getting frustrated.
Yes.
But then obviously now he can, he's got the hearing, it still carries on.
I know you've had a lot of concerns about his sleep patterns as well.
It's hard getting him to sleep. He doesn't like going to sleep and it will take me a long time. But then once he is asleep, he'll probably stay asleep for maybe 4 or 5 hours and then wake up, and then it's hard to get him back to sleep.
Sleep disturbance can be part of ADHD, so I think we need to look into this.
Thank
Lovely
you.
to see you. Bye-bye.
As Dr. Ravi leaves, Volcano Theo erupts.
Theo, please don't speak to me like that. It's not nice.
Theo doesn't fancy saying goodbye.
Are you listening to me? Do you think speaking to someone like that is nice? It's not funny.
It was a real Mexican standoff as to who was going to crack first.
Theo.
But he's clearly quite single-minded there,
Listen to me.
and he wants to have his own way.
What did you just say to me?
I'll tell you.
From the evidence so far, Theo could have ADHD, but to get a recognised diagnosis,
Come on then, Trouble.
a number of experts must jointly reach a decision. So, Theo investigations will continue. Next to Shropshire to meet 9-year-old Honey. Mum and Dad have been told their parenting is to blame for her meltdowns, but Dr. Ravi will look for other clues to explain her bad behaviour.
I'm interested today in looking at Honey's behaviour and her tantrums and her anger.
Do you mind stopping?
Like Theo, fireworks seem to flare up
Yeah, I think it's best you do, actually, young lady.
when she's asked to do anything.
Stop.
No.
Hello, are you Honey?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. How are you doing? I'm Dr. Ravi.
But today, all seems quiet on the Honey front.
So at what age was it that you began to have concerns about Honey's behaviour?
Like 1.5, 2, really, when she started mixing with other kids, mainly.
Did she play with other children, or did she prefer to just do her own thing?
Well, she loved to join in with everybody,
Okay.
didn't she? But then it would only last so long before she'd get bored and she'd want them to do what she wanted, and
Okay.
if they wouldn't...
Biting and pinching
Okay.
and scratching.
Yeah.
All right.
They were the main ones.
And since that time, has that pattern of behaviour been replicated?
It's always the first instinct is to run.
So to go away from whatever
Get
situation
away,
she's
yeah.
in. So if she can't get away, can you almost guarantee it will progress into a full-blown anger
Yeah.
episode?
Definitely.
OK. Right. Honey, I'm going to come and have a chat to you as well. Is that all right?
Yeah.
What makes you get cross? Do you know?
No. It just happens.
What about if somebody wants you to do something new and you don't really want to do it? Does that make you worried?
No, it makes me angry.
So it makes you angry. Why does it make you angry?
Even Dr. Ravi's gentle questions put Honey on edge.
Do you know why?
No.
All right. So if I asked you to do something you'd never done before... So if I asked you to do something you'd never done before, do you think it would make you cross?
Yeah.
I'd better not ask you then, had I? Cheers, see you soon. I think Honey's one of the most challenging children I've come across. All right then, Honey. See ya. Very nice meeting you. I thought things were mainly going to revolve around her temper tantrums and how her family dealt with them. But it's clear to me that there are wider behavioural issues. Her inflexibility, her anxiety around unfamiliar situations, and her need to be in control of a situation seem to point towards autistic spectrum disorder.
Autism is a communication disorder in which people have difficulty understanding social situations. But the intensity of Honey's meltdowns suggests to Dr. Ravi an even bigger problem that needs tackling fast, so he's calling in more experts to help.
It's nice that someone else has actually come in there and said she needs to be looked at on the autistic spectrum instead of going down a behavioural issue or a parenting issue, which is what's happened previously.
And it's nice we're not being blamed, isn't it,
Yeah.
for a change?
I want to become less angrier and don't have a meltdown every single day because it makes me really tired and it makes me feel ill.
Meanwhile, in sleepy Surrey, since Dr. Ravi's visit, things have been far from serene, with Theo's behaviour taking a dangerous turn for the worse.
We had an issue recently where Theo escaped. I noticed Theo was missing, so I started calling his name. Theo! Theo! And then I came to the stairs and heard the water was running, so I went upstairs to check if he was up there.
When he does his bad things, he sometimes puts his life at risk through his stupidity.
And when I came in the bathroom, I saw that it was flooded with water. And then I turned and noticed mud on the toilet and that the window's open. When I realised Theo was on the roof, I panicked and I was really scared.
He climbed out the window at the top, gone down onto the conservatory top roof, up the slates, which were very wet and slippery, got grease all over him. And he finally got onto the flat bit of roof where he suddenly realised the danger he was in. And you could tell he got scared, frightened, and that's when we heard him crying.
He was cold, shivering, and he was a bit shaken up.
And that's when I had to get a ladder out, climb up the ladder, fireman's lift, bring him down. And at my age, it's not the best thing to be doing.
Theo doesn't realise that he's not Superman and he can get hurt. He's going to do something again like this and he is going to, he really hurt himself.
There's never been a better time to start work with a psychologist to see if Theo has ADHD. Next step,
I'll see you in a bit, OK?
difficult questions from Dr. Nikki Tepper.
What's the relationship between Theo and your mum like?
Oh, really good. They spent loads of time together. Because Theo gets up quite early in the mornings, my mum's already up, so she'll have him in the mornings. She always says, you do miss it, and when he comes down, his attitude definitely changed when you walk down the stairs.
How does that make you feel?
Not great, because sometimes it makes me feel, obviously I'm not doing something right, or, not being the best mum I could be.
Hello.
Hello.
Can I ask you something, Theo? Do you think that sometimes you can be a really, really good boy?
Yeah.
Good.
Good boy now.
You are being a very good boy now. Are you ever not good? Ever?
Just a little
Tiny bit. Yeah.
bit.
Your daughter's given me quite a good comprehensive account. Is there anything that you can add to it?
Obviously, she's an absolutely brilliant daughter. But when she was first had him, she was quite young. She struggled with him because he's quite a handful. It is hard work. He is hard work. I know he is.
Why are you crying, Mum?
I'm not quite.
What,
Why are you crying? You're trying to cry.
I'm okay now.
Do you know how to make your mummy feel happy? Well done.
Thank you.
Oh, that's
All
the
better
best
now.
medicine
Oh,
ever.
sorry.
If Theo has ADHD, he'll have it all the time, in all situations. So Emma's asked to keep a diary of his behaviour to see if there's a pattern.
The more honest you are, the better we'll have a chance of working together and being really successful.
Right, we're going to get you.
Back in Shropshire, Honey's showing her sweet side,
Come on.
walking the dog with Mum.
It's nice for Honey to be outdoors. She gets cooped up in the house too much because she's not at school.
He's the best dog in the world, and I like walking it because it gives me exercise.
But Honey, at just 9, is permanently excluded from school thanks to her horrific meltdowns.
1 minute she'll be all happy, bouncy, bouncy. You'll turn your back for 2 seconds and boom, something will happen and she'll just explode. And it'll be over the minutest of things.
And this afternoon, there's a real danger of one of these explosions. She has an appointment with speech and language therapist Libby Hill, who's been asked by Dr. Ravi and Dr. Dawn to assess her for autism. Speech and language therapists don't just deal in stutters and stammers. Libby is skilled in unpicking why Honey finds communication hard.
I'm looking at her eye contact, her body language, the way that she interacts with me.
That's the theory. In practice, a storm is brewing.
No, I said no!
Libby's chosen a cosy village library for the assessment.
Here we go.
I said fucking no!
But all is not quiet in the library.
Honey, no.
Honey's refusing to go into the room. But, it's a strange place. She doesn't know what's going to happen, so her anxiety level's really high.
No, I want to go home. Stupid bitches.
Wait, that's enough.
No, they're crappy, stupid people.
Could it be that the one obstacle to assessing Honey's behaviour is Honey's behaviour? Honey isn't happy. At an autism assessment, she's flown into one of her trademark rages.
Honey, no. No. No!
Stella is left to pick up the pieces again.
Every appointment, we have the same thing where she gets extremely anxious beforehand. You ask her to do something. No, I won't do it.
He said no!
The 9-year-old simply refuses to take part, hiding in the corner. Speech and language therapist Libby Hill was going to assess Honey's language skills.
Honey, why don't you do something with me now? And then you can go home. She's just refusing to come in. She's kicking things and throwing things.
It takes 45 minutes to talk her down.
Nothing to worry about, honey, because I'm not going to ask you to do anything you don't want to do. Ooh, who's going to get
But it's the promise of bubbles that calms her down.
She's getting nice and relaxed now. That's what we needed. Let's go inside and then we can get soaked, aren't we? Never mind. Do you know the story of the three little pigs?
Libby's using picture cards to encourage Honey to tell a story. If Honey has autism, she might find this difficult.
Well, Honey was very relaxed when we started to do the Three Little Pigs story. Got Mummy Pig there. That was 12 pictures that depicts the story of the Three Little Pigs. Fantastic! But then I said, OK, you tell us a story.
Three little pigs.
That's when I felt a wave of fear, because she obviously thought that was going to be hard. I can help you.
Yay.
So, which is why I stepped in, and that diffused the situation.
It's time for you to go and build your own house and live somewhere else, and be careful of the big brother.
And they all lived happily.
Live forever after.
They did, didn't they? Fantastic.
The speed at which Honey gets worked up, and then the time it takes to bring her back down again, is clearly exhausting and worrying for all involved. But it's actually Honey's anxiety when being asked to retell a story which is most telling to Libby.
Honey is a very, very anxious little girl. She was actually frightened because she didn't know what was going to happen. And she obviously felt out of control of the situation.
Go to nannies!
Go to nannies!
At a golf club in Surrey, Theo's burning some of his endless energy by playing rough and tumble with Uncle Tom.
Oh, I'm drunk.
While Emma does the homework set by psychologist Dr. Nikki Tepper, a daily diary of Theo's behaviour.
On Saturday, Theo told me that he hated me and wanted a new mummy. On the Sunday, we had Theo told me that he was going to kill me with a knife because he hated me. And then he kicked me twice, and he punched me, and he also scratched me.
With Theo's behaviour as bad as ever, the next stage of his assessment starts. Children with ADHD are up to 3 times more likely to have erratic sleep. Monitoring Theo's disturbed nights might provide vital clues. But Theo's not taking the presence of cameras lying down.
Theo, you shouldn't be touching it. I hate that stupid knife!
When we first came in and he noticed the cameras, he said he didn't like the noise. The noise was annoying him.
Then things take an unexpected turn, with no help from Granny either.
I'd walk out the door, come back, and 5 minutes later he was asleep. I was very shocked. I've never had that before.
Dr. Ravi's asked sleep expert Marianne Taylor to analyse the footage to find out why, for the first time in months, Theo suddenly started sleeping.
So we brought the cameras in, and ironically what we're seeing here is that they've helped with Theo's sleep. They've provided a bit of white noise in his room, which has helped him to sink into a nice deep sleep.
It may not sound nice to us, but constant white noise can send some children like Theo to sleep. Theo's sleep problem appears to have been inadvertently solved, but there's still the question of his rudeness and regular rages. Meanwhile, speech and language therapist Libby has finally managed to assess Honey for autism without raising her anxiety to breaking point.
Now, what sort of shape is that?
Octagon.
Octagon, I think it is.
How has Libby coaxed out the happy Honey? By taking her somewhere she feels calm. A special animal therapy centre.
Aren't they lovely? We saw a different little girl, didn't we, today? Which is cool, isn't it?
It's not long before the other Honey returns. Anxious, stressed and confused.
What do you want?
I want to stay with Mummy.
She knows that today's the day her parents have been waiting for. Libby will be reporting back to the doctors Dawn and Ravi with her findings. And the tension's proving too much for Honey. Stella, once again, has left her house in turmoil. But she hopes that today she'll get definitive answers about why Honey behaves like this.
No. It was decided that she wouldn't come here today. It'd be too much. It'd be too much anxiety for her, too much strangeness, because I find it odd. Today, I need answers. I need help onto how to control Honey's anxiety, how to make life easier for her, because she can't carry on like this much longer.
Doctors Dawn and Ravi are discussing Honey with Libby and other experts who could unlock all sorts of help for Honey.
We're going to have a chat about Honey, a 9-year-old girl who I think we probably all agree is quite challenging.
She likes very much routine and things done just how she wants them, and she doesn't like uncertainty and change. And I began to think, look, are we dealing potentially with a child who could have some evidence of being on the autistic spectrum?
What did you think, Libby, when you saw them?
On the childhood autism rating scale, she scores sufficiently highly to put her in the mild to moderate category.
Honey ticks many boxes for autism. She struggles to interact with other kids, preferring the company of animals. She's inflexible and finds new situations frightening. In her play, she has a lack of social imagination. But there are many forms of autism, and it might be that Honey's is rather rare.
Stop.
No!
Stop. Right, stop.
So we're looking at a little girl who basically is very anxious.
Absolutely hitting out, swearing, shouting 1 minute, then the next minute laughing and appearing as if nothing's happened. And the smallest little things can make her anxious. So I would put her as fitting the characteristics of a child with pathological demand avoidance.
And my understanding with pathological demand avoidance, it's what they're doing is trying to keep control, basically. If there's a situation that arises where they feel out of control, someone asking them to do something that they don't understand why or what it is, the response is to try and regain control by not doing it. And that's because of these underlying autistic type traits.
So are we at a stage, do you think we should invite Mum in and have a chat?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to feed back to Mum.
Shall I go and get her? Yeah. OK. You want to come through and we'll have a talk?
I'd love to.
Come on then, let's go.
But how will Stella react to hearing that her daughter has such an unusual condition?
Hello. I think let's just jump straight in. Ravi, do you want to talk a little bit through what we think so far?
Absolutely. And the feeling is, with the assessments that we've done, she certainly fits and ticks the boxes for mild autism with a strong element of pathological demand avoidance. OK.
Yes.
Pathological demand avoidance is a new diagnosis within the autism spectrum. Just like any child with autism, Honey struggles with social interaction, but with PDA, she additionally feels extreme anxiety when faced with even the smallest of demands, such as her assessment with Libby in the library.
The reason why we felt it was good to have that label is because we don't want people looking at Honey when she's having one of her meltdowns and just thinking she's some sort of monster naughty child. Whereas now you've got an explanation as to why.
This isn't the end of the road, obviously. You know, diagnosis is the beginning of the journey, really. And I know you've taken a long while getting here. Is there anything, Stella, you'd like to ask any of us now?
The main thing really is helping Honey with her anxiety. Is there anything we can do now to sort of ease it? Because, I mean, she got in such a state this morning. We need to get on top of that as soon as possible, really.
I think a decision will have to be made around what's best for Honey, and it may be that being in a mainstream school won't be the right thing.
I don't think it's going to work.
It may be that going to somewhere with fewer people, maybe one-to-one. I think we can actually improve things for Honey.
OK. Yeah. Come on.
Great.
Stella now knows that after years of uncertainty, that Honey has a lifelong condition.
When we gave Honey's mum the diagnosis, she punched the air with delight, and I suspect that's just because, for the first time, someone's actually agreed with what she's thought, and she's not had to battle at all.
I'm just glad that it's all sort of coming to an end now and we can get help. This is 5 years and it's been really hard. Sorry, I don't want to do this.
This is a point from which we can just move forwards.
This is day one of Honey's diagnosis, and she has an appointment with the world leaders in pathological demand avoidance.
This is going to be huge for Honey, I think, because it's going to be the first time really we're not being fobbed off. It's all our fault.
Honey and her family are going to learn how to keep anxiety-causing demands to a minimum. Demands like being filmed, which Honey doesn't want today. They're heading to the Elizabeth Newson Centre in Nottingham, named after the psychologist who first coined the term PDA in the 1980s. Ruth Fiddler and Pat Smith run the centre and have been shown our footage of Honey's behaviour.
Wow, that's really interesting. It is, isn't it?
Honey's family will get tips on how to see more of the happy Honey
Hi, I'm Ruth. Hello, Ruth.
and less of her dark side.
Go on then, sweetie.
One of the really crucial features of having an improved future for children like Honey is that the people who support her, the people who live with her, the people who are trying to educate her really understand her condition.
Stella and Ben are being taught a non-confrontational way to parent Honey, where demands are kept to a minimum by using language that makes the demand into a game, or blaming another authority for making a demand.
Honey has had a whale of a time playing. We've come so far in the last couple of months and we've got so much further to go. But we know what we're doing now.
After years of dead ends, U-turns and roundabouts, the family's finally on the right road. It's decision day for Theo. GP Dr. Dawn, paediatrician Dr. Ravi, psychologist Dr. Nikki Tepper and sleep specialist Marianne Taylor will decide if his behaviour is linked to ADHD.
By the end of this, we will have something to go on so that me and Theo can have a better relationship.
Theo, that's not a good idea, is it, Theo?
I'm the old school type where discipline was done straight away.
Theo.
I believe that she's not consistent enough with him.
And in the waiting room, Theo's unleashed his wild side. Mum Emma's struggled to cope with Theo. He's prone to tantrums, poor sleep, and can be uncontrollable.
Don't do that, please.
Emma thinks the 6-year-old has ADHD, while her mum, Theo's nan, thinks he simply lacks discipline.
Oh, no, she needs to be more firm with him.
But to definitively diagnose ADHD, doctors Dawn and Ravi must be convinced he's inattentive and hyperactive in all situations.
So, Theo, the question is how much do we think this is behavioural, or how much is it that he's just born this way?
I think that's a very difficult one to answer, to be honest.
I am talking to you. Calm down. Stop it.
No.
Stop it.
No.
Stop it.
Nikki, perhaps, do you want to just tell us what you thought?
He's having a lot of behavioural issues at home, mainly with Mum. Very frequent, and the reason I know this is because after the consultation I did ask her to fill out quite a detailed diary.
There was quite a difference in Theo's behaviour with Mum compared to with Nanny.
He reacts very, very differently when Nana puts him down to sleep than when Mum puts him down to sleep.
And I know Nanny was a little bit critical, perhaps, of her daughter.
Mum's hearing that perhaps her parenting isn't up to scratch, that she's not doing a good enough job, and so to an extent that can have quite an effect.
What I'm kind of hearing, I think, from all of us is that there is definitely a difference in his behaviour in different situations.
I think it's unlikely that he has ADHD. It's possible, but I think it's unlikely. And I think if we can go gung-ho with a really strong sleep and behavioural programme, and we can go with two forces at the same time, I think we stand a really good chance.
They're not going home with an ADHD diagnosis today. But how will Mum take the news?
Is it time to get them in?
I think so.
Yeah, OK. I really feel for Emma. What we're looking at is a mum who is at the end of her tether. Nice to see you. How are you?
Good.
And whatever the problem, she is in desperate need of some help. Are you going to stay and play with your Uncle Tom?
Yeah!
Yeah, OK. Come in, miss.
Hello again.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Hello. So, Emma, Monica, I know you've met the whole team before. I know you've been concerned specifically about ADHD, and we've discussed that, haven't we, between us?
We're not in a position to say, yes, it's ADHD. He's clearly got some behavioural characteristics that would fit with it.
Come here. Don't punch me in the nuts. Okay?
But what's important is what you do about the behaviour that he's got. And we're going to actually organise for Nikki to undertake a behavioural programme with you. And we may well see that by getting those things sorted out, his behaviour improves.
I'm going to give you some really clear guidelines with sort of a step-by-step, this is what you do, this is what you don't do, and you do it the same every single time. The one thing that almost all parents say to me is, I've tried everything. And that's part of the problem. You've tried everything. I know that you mentioned feeling not particularly confident about your abilities to parent. If you take a message away with you, certainly from me, it would be, you know, there is something that you can do, there is hope to be had, and it's not because you're not a good parent.
You can do it, Emma, you can.
So I guess what we're saying is let's put all this in place and see what we can do in terms of Theo's behaviour. So new you, new Theo.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Great, thank you.
Let's take you back to see him.
Thank you very much.
All the best.
Bye.
Good luck.
There's not enough evidence to diagnose Theo with ADHD, and the team would like to help Emma with her approach to parenting first.
That was really good. We got a lot of information, and I can't wait to get the plans in place. And hopefully we'll start getting somewhere, and it'll be great.
Dr. Tepper's strict new regime involves putting Theo in time out when he's naughty, so that he gets no attention at all for bad behaviour.
The timeout is 6.5 minutes in a room where I close the door and leave Theo so that he gets no attention from anybody for that whole 6.5 minutes, and so he understands the boundaries there are between me and him and his behaviour. So there are certain times where he'll get a straight timeout, and there's certain times where he'll get a warning before he gets the timeout.
2 weeks and several timeouts in, Theo has made his mark and his feelings known.
When we were in timeout, Theo got very upset and quite aggressive, so he started throwing toys and hitting the door with anything he could find. When Theo was in another timeout, he started shaking the window and caused a crack in the window. It's not been a great start.
In Shropshire,
I've got loads of toys, honey.
life's looking rosier for Honey. She's now having regular play therapy sessions with an autism specialist.
Oh, have you got lots? Yes.
It's so good to be listened to, finally.
And, at last, there's news on the school front.
We've had some brilliant news this week. They have found a placement for Honey, and she will be starting in the next 2 months at school. It's basically 4 classrooms in the middle of a huge 30-acre small holding where she gets to play with ponies and guinea pigs and ducks and sheep as part of her school day.
Thank you.
Careful.
Is that me? Do I look similar?
Things are definitely looking up for Honey now because people are actually beginning to recognise that this is not our fault, this is not her fault. It's just going to be much, much easier for her once she's at a specialist school that can cope with her and know how to help her with her anxiety.
100 miles away on the Surrey golf course, after a bumpy start, Emma's firm but fair regime is starting to pay off.
Come on in.
It's 7 p.m. Theo's bedtime and sleepless nights are being tackled with a new scheme to get him asleep on time. The precise regime is backed up with stickers and reward charts.
What colour sticker would you like?
Like that with red.
There we go.
And remembering how well Theo slept when our CCTV cameras were whirring, Emma's downloaded a white noise app to soothe him to sleep.
He's asleep. It's 7 o'clock and he is fast asleep.
Crikey. Must be proud of yourself.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
As well as sleeping better at night, Theo's behaving better during the day.
Theo, please get off the banister. Good boy, well done. High five. Woo! Good boy. He knows now that I'm in charge, he's not in charge, and I will rule the roost. Good boy, well done. And I think he's starting to realise that he is the child and I'm the mother.
Emma has implemented all the advice to the letter.
Good boy, that was great.
And Theo appears to have got the message.
Good boy.
Can't fault her. It's nice to be in the house all together now.
He definitely hasn't lost anything, hasn't changed, but he's learning that you can only go so far. And like all kids, if you let them go over that boundary, they'll keep going, they'll push the boundaries out.
Even his sportsmanship's improved.
You're way better than me.
Theo's definitely still got some spirit. We still have a few little blips. But we're still working on it, and I mean, it's much better than it has been, and I'm really, really happy with the way it's all turned out. Well done.
Catch. No catch.
Thanks.